A while ago, I made some Virginia-themed monsters similar to Pokemon, sort of loosely based on where I live. I'd want to come back to that idea, but I kept struggling to think of how I was actually going to design these creatures, what I was actually going to do with them. I decided that I'd put the choice into someone else's hands. Whose hands might that be, you wonder? Their hands. So the Superpower Wiki is a website where they compile a ton of random superpowers and stuff. Usually things that nobody would ever consider. I'm going to use this little give me a random button. You can get a random superpower, a random archetype, or a random trait. I'm going to go and do probably one of each and design whatever creature comes to me with each. This means that these might be really cool and they might be really random. So let's see what our first little creature is. We're gonna hit a random superpower. Physiology? Okay, a lot of these powers are stuff you never think about, or stuff that's ultra specific. For example, the power to use the ability of Scylla, which is a variation of Genie and Ghoul physiology, not to be confused with Karina physiology. Did I say any of that right? I don't know. I don't know what a Scylla is. It looks like a Teen Titan character has this ability. Let's look into it. A supernatural creature connected to jinn and Arabian folklore. Okay, I've never heard of these before. Talented shapeshifters often aligned with ooh often aligned with sexuality, appearing as a human female who subdues men and women. Oh no! I can't make a monster that's job is to seduce humans. I know my thing isn't technically Pokemon, so I don't have to abide by the Pokemon rules. But this might not abide by my rules. Okay, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna roll again. Sands of Time Generation. The power to generate sands of time. Okay, this is a concept I can understand for a monster. So basically like a sand monster, like a time travel sands of time, maybe like an hourglass monster. Now this does have an interesting idea where my world here is kind of vaguely based on Virginia. Can you think of a lot of sandy places in Virginia aside from the beach? Virginia has no desert. There is not even like a patch of land. When I look up desert Virginia, they give me deserts. So I started to brainstorm a little bit. I'm thinking hourglass full of sand. And I was wondering if I could kind of work the Scylla into it, because they're both kind of deserty vibe. And the only thing that struck my mind was hourglass figure. And I hate myself. So I dropped that cursed direction, but I used the theming as my jumping off point for my next design, where I kind of want to go with the same kind of idea, but I'm trying to make it cuter, more animalistic, something that looks a little bit nicer. A problem that's still there is that it doesn't match with the world I've created, at least not the region of the world that I'm focusing on. So I began to come at it with the angle that it might be a foreign animal that has been brought in and is now not quite adapted properly to this land and might be causing problems because it doesn't really fit in. And so I really like the idea of semi-invasive species that is pretty popular as a pet because they're cute, but has brought a lot of issues because they're very powerful, but also we don't have the right tools to deal with them. This version is way better, but it still has a problem of kind of looking like someone's hot mother, which is not really the goal, believe it or not, that I was trying for when making a collectible cute monster pet. So now that I had a concept I liked and kind of a body type I was happy with, I needed to make this thing less suspicious. So I started to mess with the proportions a bit, making the arms a little bit bigger. I think that would help balance out the childbearing hips. The face still felt extremely flirtatious to me, so I started to play around with the mouth and trying to figure out a way to make it look less suspicious and more just cute. So I decided in the end to make its face extremely animal looking, like a big snout, almost like a crocodile. I think that really helps make it look less appealing from a human standpoint. So I think now the creature gives off the impression that it is trying to seduce you, but it's not very good at it, which makes it look more cute than weird. Allow me to introduce Sandrina. Sandrina is an earth trickster monster. Trickster being a type that is basically like the weird type. Like, you know how normal type Pokemon are either really just normal or completely wild? This is basically the completely wild side of that. All Sandrina are female. When the sand in their body builds up too much, they can create a clone of themselves, which makes them invasive because they don't have a lot of requirements to make more of them. Their sand can cause a rapid aging when used as an attack, which makes them very powerful, which also leads into their invasiveness. Sandrina live on the beaches, even though they were supposed to be desert dwelling. Despite not being native, they survived very well on the beach, and there is currently an effort to catch and contain them to keep them from damaging the local ecosystem. They are popular pets because they are kind of charming, but they are not beginner monsters due to how dangerous they can be. So while the first one was a little interesting, hopefully the next one might be a little more straightforward, easy to figure out. We're getting a random archetype now. Let's see what we get. An archetype, Mythic Hero, Japanese. Traits and powers of Mythic Heroes from Japanese mythology. They really don't want me to make something local, do they? That's so vague! So vague! There's multiple heroes, and they have multiple powers! Japanese hero is such a vague archetype! So, since I skipped the first one, I'm gonna say this is another good case to skip this one and possibly use it as inspiration in the next one, in the next archetype I get, because I am looking for certain abilities to blend in, and I'm not gonna have two foreign creatures in this video. Let's see, archetype again. Martial arts prodigy. Oh, at least that can be explained in a American vibe. Is extremely gifted in martial arts, mostly gifted with martial-oriented abilities, and can perform them at a level of highly trained adult and veteran. See, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. So, a martial arts monster that's just vaguely good at martial arts, and that way it can also have some Japanese vibe to it, I guess, but I might just make it good at punching and karate chopping and all that, you know, that kind of stuff. So a monster being good at martial arts is a lot more specific than them being a Japanese mythic hero, but I still had the issue of what I was gonna do, because martial arts is still very vague. There are so many different kinds of martial arts. So I started by doing some quick Googling, and fun fact, apparently the most popular martial art in Virginia is Krav Maga. Don't quote me on that because the website I saw it on did not give a source for that information. But I looked it up and there is no like iconic imagery for Krav Maga that I could use for a monster aside from using one of the poses that I saw online. I didn't even see a lot of poses that were used more often than others. While I went in hoping to use that as my inspiration, it didn't really inspire me much. So I just went in with a vague martial arts, almost Krav Maga style pose, and just tried to work on the proportions a bit and build it more into a animalistic shape and just seeing where it went from there. It turned into a rabbit type animal, which feels really generic, like a boxing hare. So I'm not super proud of this concept. Maybe I should have included more Japanese elements, but I wanted to keep it very local to the area that I'm theming it around. I wasn't sure how to incorporate that. The bunny, I feel like I could have done better than this if I had just tried a little more, but I didn't want to do a vague humanoid concept, especially since the last one I did is a little too humanoid even still. So this one, I ended up deciding on the bunny, because it kind of looks like he's got like a headband with the tassels behind him, and of course rabbits boxing each other is very common. I feel like I could do better, but this is what I have, and I don't think it's bad. I definitely think the design could be fun and cute. Introducing Marjabbit. This name is very temporary. I just could not think of a good name for this. I sort of ended up using Mar, of course, from martial arts, jab, jabbing, and rabbit. But also, marsh rabbits are a rabbit species living in Virginia, so this is the best I could do at the moment. There just was not a lot of inspiration on this one in total. So it's a fighting type, which I don't like the term fighting type for my personal project, but I couldn't think of anything else, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I didn't want to copy too heavily from Pokemon, so I might change it. Marjabbit is very territorial, and they box each other and fight with various forms of martial arts, and each one has a slightly different moveset, which it has basically perfected. They don't need a lot of training. A lot of their fighting talent is natural. Alright, let's hope that this last one is one that I instantly want to work with, because the last two were difficult. So we're gonna get a random trait. Please, 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 please. Trait advanced powers. This doesn't work without something to base it off of. We're gonna hit it again. Please, please, please give me a good trait. Defense compression? The power to compress one's defenses, to amplify that. Okay, let me think. We're gonna hit it one more time, because I don't actually understand what that's saying, or how I would... I feel like I understand it, but I don't understand how I would make it work. Universe exclusive powers. This is too vague! I'm not gonna make a monster that has some kind of vague power, but only in a particular universe. Give me something less vague. Like, mortality! They can all die! Mortality is assumed! Baseline, we assume it's mortal. We assume it can die. Energy inheritance. Have energy powers of both one or both of one's parents. Is inherited energy manipulation the powers of their grandparents or their family. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna use that. Because my monsters, it's assumed they inherit the powers of their parents. Because they are whatever their parents are. And their powers are inherent to what they are. So, it's got energy powers? Let me think. It's just energy manipulation. And the assumed ability to pass that on to their children. That's still pretty vague. Very vague, actually. But you know what? It works way better than mortality. And I've clicked it way too many times. We're going with energy manipulation. So for this one, just going off of energy as a theme, I was struggling to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, but I remembered the defense compression that I got earlier, and so I decided to kind of work them together, like the creature controls this energy and can form it into a compressed shield of energy. So I figured that was a nice way to work those together without making it really difficult. So this creature, I kind of have the idea of a squirrel with an energy tail that it can turn into a hard shield to protect itself. I'm just glad this one looks like an animal and not a soccer mom or a grown man working a 9-to-5. Say hello to our final little friend today, Squeld. Squeld is a light creature. It is a squirrel with the ability to harden its energy tail into a shield. It is very shy and skittish, and will turn its shield on to protect itself, even against the slightest thing. Squelds are very cute, and this is probably my favorite of the three today. But which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And also let me know if I should try this again and see if I can get any better powers or traits. Or if there's any other ways you'd like me to come up with new monsters to make. Thank you so much for watching. You have a fantastic day.